Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Olin Business School at Washington University today for one of the first in our series of industry-specific webinars for our graduate students or those prospective students looking at studying further. Today's webinar will actually be about the finance industry, so I thank you so much for being here with us. I see a few people already here. In real estate, this is what we probably call a cozy group, so we probably won't have too many questions to answer at the end unless some of you are very inquisitive. But certainly happy to get through those for you a little bit further down the track. My name is Megan. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions with the Olin Business School. And I'm going to start, if I can, by just doing some housekeeping here to make sure that everything is clear for you. If you could just firstly confirm with me that you can see the screen that we have with our slides, that would be greatly appreciated. If you cannot see that screen, please just write in the chat box and I'll make sure that that comes up for you as well here in just a moment. Okay, I didn't see anything come up, so I'm going to assume that everybody is okay with seeing that. Moving forward, as I mentioned, my name is Megan. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions here with the Olin Business School. I work primarily with the full-time MBA program and our professional MBA program as well. I'm also a recent graduate of our professional MBA, graduating in December of last year. So happy to answer any questions as a follow-up at the end if they're relevant to the larger group, just about that experience that I've had. So to move on to those housekeeping rules as well, I just want to make sure also that you all know that you have been muted. And the reason for that is just to make sure we can reduce the background noise so that everybody can hear me clearly. And on that note as well, if you do have any difficulty hearing me during this time, please feel free to raise your hand using that raise your hand function that I mentioned earlier, or send a chat box message. And if there's anything I can do to assist, I will certainly do so. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, also, if you do have any questions, please leave those until the end as far as your expectations of when they'll be answered. But you are welcome throughout this entire process to put those questions up in the Q&A box or the chat box, and I'd be happy to answer those for you. If we get to a point where we have a lot of questions and I'm not able to get through to those, or they're a little bit more personal based on your circumstance, what I will do is send you a follow-up email by the end of this week. So keep an eye out on that for your inbox or your junk mail, just to be safe, okay? Great, so now we've run through that, let's get started with our presentation. To set expectations about what this agenda will look like today, we're going to have 7 areas of focus. We'll start with looking at the program offerings that Olin Business School has that would allow you to be set up in the finance industry. We'll follow that by looking at some of the research that's done here at the university. Consider any experiential learning opportunities that you might have in this space. Look at any additional resources that we have, not just within the business school, but on campus that you'd be able to have access to be successful with your career. We'll look at the career opportunities, or more so the outcomes of our current students or our current and recent graduates, to be able to allow you to see where you might be able to land with a job post-graduation. We'll also look at the student organizations that we have to support you. And then finally, we're going to take a look at St. Louis to see how this landscape here in the Midwest is able to influence and support you with your career. Okay, so the program offerings that we have, we're going to start with the Masters of Business Administration. So we have 3 different options for this. We have a full-time format, a professional MBA, which is a part-time format, and also an executive MBA, which is part-time, but in a little bit of a different format to what the professional MBA would look like. In addition to that, we also have a variety of Master of Science in Finance programs. These are a little bit shorter and typically attract students that have less work experience than our MBA students do. And we have focus areas in corporate finance and investments, quantitative finance, wealth and asset management, and then also what's a little bit unique is our Global Master of Finance program. And so this allows you to partner with 5 of our international partner schools, most of which you would get a dual degree, being a Master of Science in Finance. In addition to that, we would also have one with IDC Herzliya in Israel that allows you to get a second degree, a certificate rather than a degree, but certainly partnering with them so that you have that dual option of learning. I will mention honorably our Master of Accounting program as well. And while I know it's not directly in the finance space, we do find occasionally that students look to get that as their master's, specifically if they have an undergraduate degree in finance that they're wanting to leverage and make themselves more competitive in the market. Now, with all of that said, I mentioned some partners that we do have, one of them being the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. And then we also have a variety of different international partners in China, South Korea, Israel, Singapore, Spain, and Germany, to say a few, and then certainly some more depending on where your interests lie that we can work with you with for study abroad opportunities, particularly in the MBA full-time format. Now that brings us to the research, and if you are familiar with Washington University in St. Louis, you will know that we are a privately held research institution, and so we do have a lot of research coming out of our space, in particular also in finance. And to be able to house all of that and fund all of that and make sure that our faculty have everything that they need, we have what's called the Wells Fargo Advisors Center for Finance and Accounting Research. And this center was established in 2007, and it's a catalyst, focal point, and coordinating body of research in finance and accounting at WashU. And they hold seminars with industry and academic experts that you would have access to. And they also have an annual conference in wealth and asset management. I will say just this past August with that conference, we had our keynote speaker, Jim McKelvey. He's a St. Louis native, but you probably know him as the entrepreneur and co-founder of Square, joining us for that event amongst many other names out there that are well known as being leading academics in that field. In addition to some audience discussions led by those industry experts. When it comes to our faculty research, as I mentioned, that research institution does allow us to have plenty of published content out there. I've got two examples up here on the screen for you, one by Assistant Professor of Finance Matthew Ringenberg, and then also one by our Senior Associate Dean of Faculty and Research, Hubert C. and Dorothy R. Moog, Professor of Finance, that's a mouthful, Todd Milborn, who you would get to know if you were here on campus. I focused on these two because they do both talk about the 2008 economic crisis in two different research areas. If you were born then, which I'm assuming all of you were, you would know that that was something that definitely shook up the financial industry and made a lot of changes to the way things are done. I will also mention, and as you can see there, that the co-authors that they're with are from a variety of different universities, and I just want to point that out to show that there is a lot of cross-collaboration that is done here at the university to be able to make sure that we have a sound body of research that's being done with a lot of different perspectives being brought into that. If we look at experiential learning, it's one of the things that we really like to focus on here at the Olin Business School, so much so that we did develop a Center for Experiential Learning that we house the majority of our practicum projects out of, as well as some other experiential learning opportunities that you'd be able to apply to and hopefully participate in as a student. They're available as practicum projects with for-profit companies, non-profit companies, family businesses, and also startups. You, like I said, do need to apply, but you do get credit for that work as well as real-world experience. So for those that have a limited experience in the workplace already, or perhaps they're looking to be career changes and move from one industry to another, this is a really great way to be able to leverage your experience, put that on your resume, and hopefully gain that job that you're looking for upon graduation. I'm going to give a couple of examples of some of the other experiential learning programs as well. We have the Global Management Studies program, which sometimes has a finance focus and sometimes has focuses in other industry areas. But essentially that program is where the students are voting on where in the world they would like to go. And they do essentially a roadshow where they're looking at understanding a particular industry in a region of the world, learning a little bit about the culture, having some fun while they're there, and seeing some of the tourist attractions as well. But it's a really great way not just to build camaraderie with your classmates, but also to learn about that global perspective, which is so important in business. Another program that we have is the United Way Board Fellows Program, and that's where the students would sit on a United Way agency board for 1 year. As a result of the length of this program, it is unfortunately only available to our MBA students at this time, but it is definitely a great opportunity for you to also do a consulting project one-to-one with one of those nonprofit agencies. Some of those, again, can be in that finance space, so it's really about looking at the application process and understanding what kind of project would be expected of you. Moving on, I'm going to give some examples of some of the practicums that are specifically in finance to make sure that we stay in that industry for you. The first one is called Mavuno. To give you a little bit of background about Mavuno, this was a project that we did in the spring of 2017. Mavuno uses the principles of business to support farmers by organizing them into locally led groups, educating them with optimal farming techniques, and providing them with quality supplies and seeds to allow them access to the regional markets. They are located in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that is one of the world's most war-torn regions. So you'll see the photograph here of the students actually in the Congo. They traveled via Uganda to be able to support a project here with them to be really focused in the functional areas of business planning and financial strategy. So very much in that entrepreneurial, social entrepreneurial space, but also focusing then on the financial viability long-term for this organization and helping to support them and the farmers that they're looking to support in turn. One of the other projects that we did, it took some students to Vietnam, and we've actually done this a practicum rather with this group in 2 years in a row, spring 2016 and then also in 2017. The company's name is NP Logistics. They're a privately held logistics company and the largest private enterprise in Vietnam. They also recently won some awards here in the United States, and while they're considered a family business, they're certainly a global powerhouse not to be reckoned with. The functional area for this project was business strategy and finance, and the project was for them to develop a strategy for growth in Vietnam's booming economy. So with all of the change that's happening outside in that external environment, they were there to support NP Logistics in building a strategy to make sure that they continue the growth that they have without being impacted by the politics and the economy that's surrounding them. And then lastly, for those that don't like to travel quite as far and love animals, there's an adorable polar bear here, but the St. Louis Zoo was a nonprofit organization that we worked with as well on a practicum project fairly recently, this past spring. It was fall of 2016. To give you a little bit of background about St. Louis Zoo, if you're not from the area, it's the second largest zoo in North America, and it was recently voted the best zoo in the United States. So we're very proud of that. In addition, it's also one of the top free, and you heard me correctly, free activities or attractions in the United States. So it's definitely something worth seeing when you get to St. Louis. It's widely recognized for its innovative approaches to animal management, wildlife conservation, research, and education. And it serves approximately 3.2 million visitors per year. So the functional area for this experiential learning or practicum project was in strategic and financial planning. So when you do have a product like this that is free to the public, the challenge you face then is that you need to be able to fund yourself somehow. And so the challenge is faced in the marketplace and trying to raise funds, even in St. Louis, where people are quite philanthropic, and we have one of the top United Way programs here as far as philanthropy and donations to that group. It's still a struggle for them to be able to make sure they can maintain their facilities, support their animals in a way that's effective, and then also support their research. So some of the questions that were posed to the students working on this St. Louis Zoo project were, what is the willingness to pay, or how much do visitors value the experience? How would attendance be impacted should admission be charged, and at what price points? And then ultimately, what are the financial implications at various admissions prices and attendance forecasts? So somebody who's really wanting to get into the analytical side of finance, this is the kind of project that can really help benefit you and put some more information and knowledge on your resume. When it comes to support for these programs, you will receive support from the faculty in addition to the organization that you're working with. So it's a really great opportunity to get engaged as well with the community, give back a little bit, and then also gain that vital knowledge in finance. So when it comes to additional resources, I want to make sure we include these, and this is not a finite list for you. There are many opportunities to find resources within the individual programs as well. But because this is a general graduate business school webinar, I want to make sure that I keep this as general as possible while still touching on some things that I think might be of value to you if you're looking at finance as a career path. So firstly, I want to point out the Scandalaris Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. This is an interdisciplinary center that is actually located now outside of the business school. It is located on the University Danforth campus where we are, but it's allowing you now access to anybody who has an innovative or startup idea that wants to come together to collaborate from, for example, the School of Engineering, the Brown School of Social Work, the medical school campus as well. So if you're looking to bring your financial talents into somebody who perhaps doesn't have that strength but has a solid engineering idea, this might be a great place for you to find your space. In addition to that, we also have a number of guest speakers that come through, not just through the Wells Fargo Advisors Center for Accounting and Financial Research, but we also have other guest speakers that come to classes. They have those relationships with faculty. We have them come through as part of the Western Career Center, and then also through some of the student clubs and organizations. Speaking of the Western Career Center, the industry advisors that we have, I think, are also something that sets Olin Business School apart. They aren't coming from an academic background. They are coming from the industry to which they are advising you. So we have some excellent financial advisors down there. One in particular I had a chance to speak with this morning who was in investment banking for 15 years, which is kind of unheard of. So he obviously has a lot of grit and stamina, but he is a great resource for our students looking to go into that space because he understands the trends. He understands where this industry is going and how he can help you to get to where you want to be. In addition to that, we also have academic directors. Each platform in the MBA program, and then also each track in the Master of Science in Finance program will also have an academic director that will be able to help you guide your curriculum, guide the work that you choose, guide the direction that you take based on your interests. We have road shows, some of which are specific to programs and some of which are open to all of our graduate students. Some of those are housed through the Western Career Center, and some of them are housed through our student clubs and organizations. So there are a number of ways where you would be able to join in on some of those and learn from industry experts that are actually out there living and breathing this as a day-to-day life to be able to really understand if this really is the right fit for you. In addition to roadshows, we also have case competitions, some of which are here on campus, and then we also have some that are off campus. But it's very common for our students to be traveling to those case competitions throughout the year. They do very well in those case competitions, anywhere from our specialized students I've seen that have placed to our full-time MBAs, and even our part-time students have taken that leap and decided to join some of the case competitions with the full-time students. We have Bloomberg terminals in the Olin Business School library that are accessible to all of our students. And then we also have a subscription for each of you once you're here on campus for the Wall Street Journal that you will have access to, in addition to other newspapers, Financial Times, and things like that that you'll be able to get access to through our Western Career Center. Okay, moving on from additional resources, we're going to look at why people actually come to graduate school, which is to get a career outcome. So I've called this career opportunities, but really it is looking at what possible opportunities might exist for you post-graduation. The information that you see on your screen right now is actually for our 2016 graduates. I've included here the full-time MBA program students, the MS Corporate Finance and Investments track, and then also the Quantitative Finance track. The Global Master of Finance students, they actually work with the Career Center, their partnering school, so I don't have that information available for the webinar today, but if that's something you're interested in, I can certainly follow up on your behalf. And then the Wealth and Asset Management track, which you would have seen earlier, well, they're yet to graduate. It actually just started recently, so we don't have any information from them because our first cohort started just this past fall, and we are waiting for them to graduate at the other end so that we can see what the outcomes might look like. I've also got on the right-hand side some examples of some of the companies who've hired our graduate students. Take a look and see if there's any that might be of interest to you. This, again, is not the endless list. There are a lot of other companies that come to campus, recruit our students, that students do a very good job at networking with. A lot of companies, both nationally and globally, where we have alumni for you to be able to connect with and really be able to develop those relationships. One really nice thing about Washington University is that we do have a smaller cohort of most of our classes, and as a result, everybody seems to be quite willing to support you and help you get through that process if this is all new to you. So I will point out, I know a lot of people get very excited about investment banking, and just to set expectations for the industry in general, after speaking with the Western Career Center and our finance guru down there, just so that you understand, in 2008 or since that time, the financial industry has really moved into an analyst hiring model. And so this is due to the highly volatile markets. So where previously investment banking would have been at the core or the center of hiring for these companies, it's actually shifting to where graduates are finding more opportunity in asset management, mortgage companies, credit card companies, and industry finance as well. And so this is not unique to Washington University when you look at the types of companies here and what kinds of industries people are going into. It's just the reality of how that market is changing based on the economic crisis of 2008. So when we look at the student organizations here, you can tell some of them have done a really great job with their logos, and others are clearly putting their efforts into finding you some wonderful guest speakers right now. But make sure you take a look here at some of the ones that I feel would be relevant to you. In particular, the Olin Finance Club, the Quantitative Finance Club, the Wealth and Asset Management Club, which is new, and then also Beta Alpha Psi, which is accounting and finance focused. But I did, in addition to that, add in the Olin Technology Club and the Olin Big Data Association. And the reason being is we do have quite a few students that have interest in overlapping that financial industry with big data and analytics. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of opportunity in that space for hiring right now. And then also the Technology Club, because technology plays such a pivotal role in so much that we do in this point in time. Moving on to St. Louis, for some of you that aren't as familiar with the area, I do want to point out some things that can help you potentially from that career standpoint. I'll start a little bit big picture from an industry perspective, and then we'll move into that finance space as well. So St. Louis is actually home to 9 Fortune 500 companies and also 18 Fortune 1000 companies. We work very closely in a variety of different partnerships with these companies, so it's great to know that you would have access to some of the higher level C-suite executives as well. It is a smaller city, so the benefit of being in a smaller city such as this is that you do have better access to these individuals because they're not being bombarded by quite as many people as you would in, say, San Francisco or New York City. And we were also recently ranked one of the top 5 fastest growing cities for US startups. And that is a result of a lot of wonderful companies that we have that have been started here. We have a not-for-profit, you can see up there, Arch Grants on the left-hand side. They actually provide a kind of like a Shark Tank style competition where it actually allows you to get some money to get started and get some venture capital there for you to be able to commit to being here in St. Louis for 2 years with that company. And then get that strategic support from them too. You'll also see there's a logo there for Cortex. Cortex is an innovative incubator. It's really in that tech space, but it's a really great resource as well if anybody is interested in the entrepreneurial area. And finally, more specific to you, St. Louis is also the 2nd largest financial hub in the USA, behind New York City, of course, for private wealth and retail brokerage companies. And that's based on the number that we have headquartered here and also those that have a large presence in the area. There's a couple that you can see up there. We also have a large MasterCard facility here. We have a large Citibank presence as well. So all of these really tie into making this a really great place for you if you're looking at the finance industry. So what to do now? I know you have a lot of options out there. Depending on where you are in your career and your research, you may be a little bit more clear on that, and some things may be a little less clear. The best thing that you can really do at this point is really start to research what it is that might suit your needs, because it really is going to be different based from person to person. But we do have a lot of opportunities for you to continue to act beyond just this webinar and the information that I've provided you today. We have a women's weekend coming up November 10 through 12. We have a diversity weekend December 1 through 3. We also have campus visit days that happen quite frequently each month, so you can find those on our website, which I've shown at the bottom of the page here is www.olin.wustl, which is wustl.edu. And then you can also start an application. So if you're at that point where you feel ready and you know what it is that you want to do when you grow up, feel free to start that application so we can take a look at that for you and hopefully move you through that process very quickly. If you're interested in still being considered for the first round and you have all of your ducks in a row, you can submit as late as October 15th and we'd still be willing to consider you for that round 1 deadline, which would be December 15th to find out your decision. I will also say for those of you that are shopping around by industry, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we have a variety of these industry webinars that will be happening over the next month or so. The next one will be marketing, followed by accounting, consulting, supply chain management, and then entrepreneurship. So please, I'd love to see you at those as well if you have any interest in overlapping any of these industries, or if you just want to come and join us because you have a nice lunch sitting in front of you and you have nothing better to do. In addition to that, I'll also let you know that we have Financing Your Graduate Education webinars coming up. There's one specific to international students, so make sure that you take a look at that if you're joining us from abroad right now. Hopefully it's not too late in the evening for you. And then for our US citizens and permanent residents, we also have one coming up on November 17th. So hopefully that will provide some clarity on one of those things that tends to be the most challenging when it comes to considering a graduate program. So that wraps up everything that I have for you at this point in time, but this also opens up an opportunity for if you have any questions that I might be able to answer for you. I'll be very honest if there's something I cannot answer for you at this point in time and can certainly follow up with you at a later date. Anything that you feel that you've also missed from this webinar, we can also record this and allow you to gain access to it at a later date. So if you are online or you've had to leave early or anything like that, or you want to go back and make sure you didn't miss anything, we'll make sure that we send this to you by email, hopefully in the next few days here before the end of the week, so that you can run through this again, share it with your friends, and then hopefully we'll see you on campus at some point in the future. So I'll give it just a moment because we don't have any questions at this point in time, but please feel free to use that Q&A box or the chat section to be able to add any questions you might have. Again, if you could try and keep them specific to the group, that would be helpful. And if there aren't any questions in a few moments, and then we can wrap up, everybody can have an early mark and we can move on with the rest of our day. So just a few moments here and we'll see how we go, okay? Okay, it does not seem like we have any questions. We have a very quiet group with us today, which is absolutely fine. I hope that's an indicator that I've provided you with all of the information that you actually need and nothing was too confusing for you there. As I mentioned, there is also an email address on this final page. Please write that down. If there are any follow-up questions you might have, we'd be happy to assist. Otherwise, thank you for taking the time out of your day today to join us for this webinar. We're very much looking forward to welcoming you to campus, seeing you at one of our other webinars, or seeing you at any other opportunity that we have, perhaps in your city as well. It looks like we actually just got one question through, so I'm going to answer that one, and here comes another one. So it looks like everybody's got the courage now. The first question is, are the experiential learning opportunities available to all programs, full-time, part-time, and executive? I will say yes and no, and what I mean by that is that it will depend on the type of experiential learning opportunity that we're talking about. So with the ones through the Center for Experiential Learning are open to all of our students, depending on which facet of the program it is. So our practicums are open to everybody. The United Way Board Fellows is MBA, executive, and professional MBA only, again, based on the length of time there. The wealth and asset management students and also the corporate finance and investment students will actually have a built-in practicum that's through the Wells Fargo Advisors Center for Accounting and Financial Research. And then our quantitative finance track will actually have a built-in practicum consulting project as well, but it will be housed through an academic director. Another question we have here is there any recording for the webinar, because somebody had missed that? And so I just will really reiterate that this will be recorded, and we will send this recording to all attendees. So if there's something that you've missed, if you didn't arrive until a little bit later, that's not a problem. And I'd be happy to make sure you get all of that information. Another question has come up as well here about how many students with an undergraduate degree in mainland China did you admit last year for the MSF program? So that's a wonderful question. It's not a piece of information, unfortunately, that's relevant to the entire group, nor is it something I have with me right now. But what I will do, Jingyi, is I will answer that to you directly by email, if that's okay, and make sure you have that information with you. It's just not something I'd be able to give you at this point in time. So I think that wraps up all of the questions I got there in the last flurry. But again, I want to reiterate that I'm really appreciative that you were able to join us today. And we certainly hope to continue to engage with you throughout these webinars and throughout the year, and hopefully see you next fall as a student on our campus. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.